bắt đầu thì Kha xin phép trước tiên là điện thoại xin tắt, mở qua cái silent tắt dùm, và Kha sẽ nhường lại cho hai người điều khiển chương trình ngày hôm nay là Vương Nguyễn và Destiny.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vương Nguyễn, and I'll be one of the MCs for today's event.
Kính thưa quý vị, chúng tôi là Destiny Nguyễn. Chúng ta sẽ cùng Vương điều họp cho chương trình ngày hôm nay. Chương trình của chúng tôi sẽ bắt đầu trong giây lát. Xin quý cô chú anh chị ổn định chỗ ngồi.
Đúng rồi, làm như vậy cũng được, nhưng tôi tự nhiên chạy bộ nó không có đủ thời gian.
Today we honor the sacrifices of those that came before us, those who risked everything for freedom. We celebrate the spirits that lives on in each one of us now and the next generation. As we begin, we will have Stephen Pham and Amy Lay carrying the U.S. and Vietnam flag for our anthem. During the anthem ceremony, the U.S. national anthem will also be sung by Laura Tran, and the Republic of Vietnam anthem will be sung by all our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
The national anthem, quốc ca Việt Nam Cộng Hòa.
Hùng tráng quyết chiến đấu làm
Chúng tôi xin kính mời ông Hà Văn Sang và ông Đinh Hùng Cường bước lên để nghi hương. Phút mặc niệm tưởng nhớ anh linh các bậc tiền nhân, trải ngàn gian khó gây dựng tổ quốc, để Giang Sơn gấm vóc gìn giữ bờ cõi, chống giặc ngoài xâm, truyền lại cho thế hệ con cháu. Tưởng niệm anh linh anh hùng tử sĩ, liệt nữ xả thân bảo vệ Giang Sơn bờ cõi, bảo tồn giá trị tự do, dân chủ, nhân bản, nhân quyền cho người dân. Tưởng niệm bao linh hồn tù nhân lưu đày trong ngục tù cộng sản, trong các trại khổ sai rừng thiên nước độc, đọa đầy giữa hệ lụy, ý thức hệ và lòng thù hận vô thần. Bao oan hồn thuyền nhân, nạn nhân vượt biển vượt biên, oan khiên thống khổ, nỗi đau xót thể chất, tinh thần và niềm tin bị chà đạp bởi hệ lụy bạo quyền. Tưởng nhớ bao dân oan, tù nhân lương tâm chịu oan trái ngược đãi trong ngục tù vì lý tưởng thăng tiến giá trị con người. Phút mặc niệm bắt đầu. Phút mặc niệm kết thúc, chúng tôi kính mời quý vị an toàn.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to now invite Mr. Hoang Vi Ca, founder of Vietnamese American Foundation, to share a few words in the purpose and the spirit of today's event.
Thank you. Cảm ơn Vương, cảm ơn Destiny. Kính thưa các quý quan khách, Ska xin phép được nói bằng Anh ngữ, xong rồi Ska sẽ chuyển dịch lại bằng Việt ngữ cho nó nhanh. Dear our beloved seniors, elders, veterans of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, all the association, organization and media, and also all our distinguished guests. We are gathered here today not just to remember a date in history, but to honor a legacy of courage, to acknowledge a painful truth, and to reaffirm our collective commitment to justice and freedom. April 31st, 1975, a day etched in our heart of every Vietnamese who cherish liberty, marked not just the fall of Saigon, but the fall of a free Vietnam. We do not celebrate this day. We commemorate it is ngày Quốc hận, the National Day of Mourning. A day when a proud nation fell under the grip of communism. Let us begin by paying tribute to the brave soldiers of the ARVN, these men and women who laid down their life in defense of our homeland. They fought not for power, not for glory, but for the simple yet sacred dream of a free and democratic Vietnam. Against all impossible odds, they resisted a massive communist invasion backed by the Soviet bloc. They stood as our shield, our last line of defense, with a spirit that never surrendered. Even the gun fell silent. Today, we salute and honor their bravery, their sacrifice, and their unbreakable love for Vietnam. But let us also speak of honesty. The fall of Saigon was not merely the result of military defeat. It was the result of betrayal. A biased international media painted a distorted picture of the world, turning the public opinion in the free world against our cause, our lives. Those who once pledged to stand behind us in the fight for freedom turned their back. Ends were cut, promises were broken, and the people of South Vietnam were left to face the darkness alone. The silence of the world in our time need was definitive and devastating. Today, the communist regime dare to claim April 30 as the day of victory. But what kind of victory brings exodus to millions? What kind of victory leaves behind prison camps, broken families, and generations living in fear and poverty? Since 1975, the Vietnamese people have endured countless human rights abuse, censorship, religious oppression, and a grossing lack of freedom. The scars of the regime crimes are not only found in the history books, they are found in every Vietnamese refugee family, in every voice that cannot speak freely, in every life lived under oppression. This is not victory. This is a national tragedy. Yet, despite the sorrow, we stand with hope, because the fight for freedom is not over yet. It lives on in the heart of new generation, young Vietnamese at home and abroad, who refuse to forget our past and accept the present. We are speaking out, organizing, creating, resisting. They are providing a spirit of 1975 did not die. That spirit live on and will pass on. And we, all of us, will carry the torch forward. Let it be known, we will never stop fighting for a free Vietnam. We will never accept a regime built on lies, and fear. We will honor the memory of those who lost and continue their struggle, their fighting, not with guns, but with truth, with unity, with the unwavering belief in one day Vietnam will rise again, free, democratic and whole. Giờ sau đây Kha xin phép được nói bằng Việt ngữ ngắn gọn. Kính thưa các bậc cao niên, các cô chú bác thuộc Quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa, các hội đoàn, các cơ quan truyền thông và toàn thể quý quan khách. Ngày hôm nay chúng ta không chỉ tưởng nhớ một ngày tang thương đen tối của lịch sử, mà còn để vinh danh lòng can đảm đối diện với sự thật đau thương và khẳng định quyết tâm không ngừng chiến đấu vì tự do và công lý cho đất nước, cho dân tộc Việt Nam. Ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 1975 không phải là ngày chiến thắng, mà là ngày đất nước dân tộc Việt Nam mất tất cả giá trị thiêng liêng của một quốc gia và dân tộc. Ngày mà tự do sụp đổ, ngày mà bóng tối cộng sản bao trùm trên quê hương, chúng ta không ăn mừng ngày này, chúng ta tưởng niệm và luôn luôn gọi đó là ngày uất hận. Chúng ta nghiêng mình tưởng nhớ các chiến sĩ quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa, những người đã chiến đấu không vì danh lợi mà vì giấc mơ thiêng liêng cho một Việt Nam tự do, dân chủ. Dù thiếu thốn, dù bị bao vây, dù bị phản bội, họ vẫn không lùi bước. Họ chính là những lá chắn kiên định và cuối cùng cho miền Nam Việt Nam thân yêu trước năm 1975 đối diện với sự xâm lược của Cộng sản Bắc Việt. Tuy nhiên, họ không thua, không bị buông súng chỉ vì cái sự can đảm đó, mà phần lớn là vì chính sự phản bội, sự quay lưng của thế giới tự do từ sau năm 1973. Và họ đã chiến đấu bằng từng viên đạn, từng hơi thở. Và cuộc chiến đó đối diện với một lực lượng gấp đôi, gấp 3 lần thì dĩ nhiên đến một ngày nó phải không đương đầu được. Và ngày đó chính là ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 1975. Nhưng ngày nay chế độ Cộng sản gọi ngày 30 tháng 4 là đại thắng. Nhưng đại thắng đó mà làm sao lại khiến hàng triệu người bỏ nước ra đi? Chúng tôi sẽ có những vị diễn giả ngày hôm nay sẽ đề cập sâu hơn, chi tiết hơn về các chủ đề đó. Và ở đây chúng tôi sẽ xin minh định một điều: suốt cuộc chiến Việt Nam và trước khi xảy ra chiến Việt Nam, hoàn toàn dù binh đao đói nghèo như thế nào, không hề có một làn sóng người Việt bỏ nước ra đi, chưa từng có. Chỉ đến khi Cộng sản chiếm hoàn toàn đất nước Việt Nam, lúc đó người Việt mới đứt ruột liều mình bỏ nước ra đi, thì chính đó không phải gọi là ngày đại thắng. Tuy nhiên trong cái nỗi đau thương đó, chúng tôi vẫn nuôi lấy niềm hy vọng, và một thế hệ mới cả trong nước và ngoài nước sẽ nối tiếp ngọn lửa đấu tranh và sẽ tiếp tục cuộc đấu tranh này cho đến ngày Việt Nam hoàn toàn được có tự do, dân chủ, không còn cộng sản. Xin một lần nữa kính cảm ơn quý vị.
Today, we are joined by distinguished guests who will share reflections on the Vietnam War, the refugee experience, the civil rights, and the resilience of our community. I am honored to introduce Mr. Dinh Hồng Cường. He was a major in the Republic of Vietnam Armed Force. He also served as a district chief of Thủ Thừa districts in Long An province. In his last mission, Major Dinh commanded 2 battalions of the regional force that defeat 2 regiments of the 5th North Vietnam Communist Division on April 8, 1975. He was wounded in this battle, but managed to escape with his wife and children on April 20, 1975. Mr. Dinh is former president of the Vietnamese American community of DC, Maryland, and Virginia, a respected media expert, a prolific author, a successful businessman in the Vietnamese community. His latest book is about friendship forged during the Vietnam War. Chúng con kính mời chú Đinh Hồng Cường.
Xin kính chào quý vị và chúng tôi xin được nói bằng tiếng Anh theo yêu cầu ban tổ chức. Ladies and gentlemen, before I start my story, I thank you to Mr. Hoàng Vy Kha and all the youth group invite me alone to be here. I would also like to thank you all guests, especially friends from other countries present here too. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a great honor for me to stand in front of you on this special event to bring back some memory about the Vietnam War, which was 50 years ago. Even though the wars were over in Vietnam, but it still had a lot of story to tell and a lot of experience to learn from. I understand that all of us still suffer from losing our country, and we hate the communist regime. They have treated our people like a slave. The national communist war in Vietnam, in general, can be seen as the war between two forces, the good and the evil, with many subjective and objective factors as well as the circumstances of history. The evil force won 50 years of ruling Vietnam, causing disastrous consequences that are visible today. Widespread corruption, leader from the top to bottom are rich, people are poor. In society, we are social evil such as the prostitution, drug, gambling, state-run education, and religion. The prosperity that the Communist Party of Vietnam promotes shock of fake prosperity. Many reasons made South Vietnam collapse and fall under the communist hand. Even our South Vietnamese force fought bravely since 1954, when the Geneva peace talk divided our country in two parts, the North and the South. Even the South Vietnamese force were fighting bravely and sacrificed a lot of casualties. But we could not win the war. Just because the American government just helped us strong enough to defend the South. And they never turned the green line for us to counter-attack to the North. While Russia and China support the communists in the North with the full equipment and invade the South. Unfortunately, the Republic of Vietnam, when the American reached agreement on the communists and China and abandoned Vietnam in 1972, the Army had to fight alone against the communists. The communist invasion without any assistance from the United States and the Allies. The Army fought bravely to recapture ancient citadel of the Quang Tri. Even though the Marine and the Airborne has shed so much blood, then the battle of the Big Long from the 5th Infantry Division, the Airborne Force Reserve, and the regional forces drove the communists out there. And then, very brave, in the Second Corps, we defeat communists in the Kong Tung. And when the communists reached the peace talk in 1973, the American cut off all the Vietnam equipment. No more airplane, no more gasoline, no more ammunition. And people still fight very bravely. I can tell you an example. When we fought the 5th Communist Division in my district, some people in the outpost, they fought with the communists, they used the human waiver to overrun them. These outpost chiefs called me and tell me to shoot artillery over their head. They said sooner or later they will die, but they will fight to the death to kill all the communists. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the true story about the war in Vietnam. Even we fought very hard, but we could not win the war. Besides that, we got the betrayal of the media. They always lie about the Vietnam War. The media, the CBS, all over the media, they can come to our forces to get free information. But they never reach on the communist side to get information. All the information they get, the communist, the fake and the propaganda. So always they paint the bad image of the Vietnam War in front of the world. Then, during the accident in 1968, when Lieutenant William Kelly make a mistake, kill a lot of Vietnamese, the peasants and the people in the accident, and the whole world make a big noise. But nobody mentioned about the Tet Offensive, the communist that killed thousands and thousands of people in the way. They cut their head, they shoot them, they bury them alive. And beside that, the communists, they move around, they artillery to the population area to kill the people. But no media, nobody talking about that. One of the worst thing, they always telling lie in the last minute of the Vietnam War. They always tell us we lose every province after province to the communists, but as a matter of fact, we're still there, we still fight the war. So that the betrayal of all the media to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, we are proud of young people who have taken responsibility of the fighting for the freedom, democracy, and human rights for Vietnam. We have nothing to be proud of passing the torch of struggle to the next generation. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Dr. Nguyen Dinh Thanh. Dr. Nguyen Dinh Thanh is President and CEO of Boat People SOS. Arrived in the United States in 1979 as a boat refugee from Vietnam. He earned his PhD in mechanical engineering from Virginia Tech and worked in research for over a decade before dedicating himself to advocacy full-time. After joining Boat People SOS as a volunteer in 1988, he had led a successful campaign in 1995 that resulted in the resettlement of over 18,000 former boat people. Under his leadership, Boat People SOS grew from a grassroots volunteer initiative into the largest Vietnamese American nonprofit with operations in dozens of U.S. cities, 3 Asian countries, and a Vietnamese language media network. Dr. Thanh has also supported and mentored over 50 community organizations, securing millions in funding to strengthen their work. His national and international initiatives includes efforts to aid asylum seekers, combating human trafficking, promoting civic engagement, and support small businesses. He has been widely recognized for his leadership in human rights work, including receiving the Asian Democracy and Human Rights Award in 2011 and a National Leadership Award from LEAP in 2012. Sorry.
Cảm ơn thưa. Dạ vâng, thưa tất cả quý vị ở đây, quý vị trưởng thượng, quý vị đại diện các cái tổ chức và hội đoàn, chúng tôi xin phép được trình bày bằng tiếng Anh theo cái lời yêu cầu của ban tổ chức. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen and friends and colleagues, I'm here today to talk about, to give a very brief overview of the history of Vietnamese refugees. Currently, there are about over 5 million Vietnamese in the diaspora, roughly. And roughly about half of them were refugees or descendants of refugees. Among those, over 2.5 million refugees, former refugees, there are about 1 million who escaped Vietnam by boat. Actually, no one knows exactly the number of people who escaped by boat, but we are defined as boat people as a community. That's our identity. So right in the aftermath of the fall of Saigon, on April 30th, 1975, there were about 130,000 evacuees. These are the people who just escaped by boat. They headed towards the open seas and they were picked up by the Salmon Fleet of America. And then after that, there were waves upon waves upon waves of boat people. And I and my family were boat people. My wife and her family were boat people. Many of us here escaped Vietnam to freedom by boat. Those are very perilous voyages. Many of the boat people perished at sea. No one knows, no one has the exact number of how many died at sea. But there's a common agreement that there were about 200,000 to 300,000 who didn't make it to freedom. And as Will mentioned, in 1996, all the camps, refugee camps of the boat people were closed. And all those who still remained in the camps were forced back to Vietnam. But luckily, thanks to Congressman Christopher Smith, I saw him taking a picture with some of you yesterday, right? And he introduced a bill saying that no American tax dollars to finance forced repatriation of Vietnamese boat people. All the countries in the region, even the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, counted on American tax dollars to carry out forced repatriation. Now they're starved of the financing part of it, so they couldn't do anything. So they had to come to compromise to allow American INS at this time, but INS now USCIS, actually catered to go to Vietnam. And we interviewed all those who have been repatriated and bring them to the US, and 20,000 almost made it back to freedom in the US. So that's about in 2000. So at the time I thought, oh geez, the boat people era is now closed. We have accomplished our mission, so we could rest. But no. The next year, hundreds of Montagnard Christians escaped to Cambodia and Thailand again. Why? Because in 2001, there was peaceful demonstration by tens of thousands of Montagnard Christians just praying the government to leave them alone, to let them be free with their own belief, religious belief, and to stop expropriating their land, the ancestral land. They were crushed. Hundreds were killed. So they escaped. Hundreds were sent to prison. Some were sentenced to 21 years in prison. And then 2004, another wave of demonstration in the Southern Highlands, and 2008. So more and more Montagnard escaped to Cambodia and Thailand. But then there was a turning point, 2007. A new group of asylum seekers fleeing to Thailand. These are dissidents. Why 2007? Because at the time, the new Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng, a lot of people in Vietnam at the time expected, hoped that he would be a change, a effective change, because he promised a lot. But as soon as he seized power, he launched a major crackdown. Father Nguyễn Văn Lý was arrested, Nguyễn Văn Đài was arrested, if you remember. Lê Thị Công Nhân this year. Waves of people. That's almost a decimation of all the dissident movements. So they escaped to Thailand. And also the Hmong, and also the Khmer Krom Buddhists. They started to escape to Thailand. That's when I led a delegation of lawyers to go to Thailand, pick up the cases, help them, fill out applications, to get recognized as refugees by the UNHCR. But there are more and more coming. So by 2010, there are hundreds of new refugees already in Thailand. So we established a permanent presence in Thailand to this day. So to this day, we have helped about 3,500 Vietnamese from Vietnam fleeing to Thailand, including almost 1,000 Montagnard Christians, 700 Hmong Christians, many hundreds of Khmer Krom Buddhists. There's a Mahao, there's Buddhists, Unified Buddhist members, and Catholics, you name it, and many dissidents. In this room, I know someone referred to me, a very young lady who fought for democracy and freedom in Vietnam. She went to Thailand with her family, and she just resettled to Vancouver, Canada. So there's strong resistance. So the presence of refugees, Vietnamese refugees in Thailand, is a sign of ongoing resistance in Vietnam 50 years after the war ended. And I'd like to end with a special expression of gratitude for all these years of our operation in Thailand to defend our people, our refugees. We didn't get any funding from any government. We got supported by donations from our own community, from the diaspora. That's why we have not been affected by the recent cuts in funding, right, from the US government. So we truly appreciate that. But I'd like to also send out a strong message. Among those refugees in Thailand, there are many human rights defenders. They continue to defend their rights, and also they reach back to Vietnam, to their villages, to their co-religionists, and their communities of persecuted Christians, persecuted indigenous people, Buddhists, Cao Dai, etc. To build up the capacity for the old people in Vietnam to continue to resist, to continue to promote their freedom, to defend their freedom, and also to build up civil society, which will be the seed for democracy in the future. With that, I'd like to thank everyone here, and thank you, my deep thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share about the plight of refugees throughout the past 50 years from Vietnam. Thank you.
Our next guest is going to be Dr. Quoc Hương Trần. Dr. Tran serves as coordinator of Alliance of Vietnam's Democracy. He's a member of Steering Committee for Global Democracy Coalition and acts as a spokesperson for the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam. He was a recipient of American Medical Association's Leadership Award and a faculty member of University of Texas South and Western Medical Center.
Thank you, Destiny. Kính thưa các bậc trưởng thượng, chúng tôi cũng xin phép được nói chuyện bằng tiếng Anh. Dear distinguished guests, it's kind of difficult to follow up after such an illustrious speaker as Dr. Nguyễn Đình Thắng, but here it goes. Thank you the organizing committee for inviting me. Also thank you, victims of Communism Foundation, for this beautiful space. I was asked to speak about the difference between victory and Quốc hận. For a lot of us here today, we're here not to celebrate a victory, we're here to commemorate a tragedy. April 30th, 1975, the communist regime in Hanoi calls it the Great Spring Victory. Ngày Đại thắng mùa xuân. But as to us, to many of us in this room, and to millions who lived through its aftermath, we know. It was not a day of liberation. It was a day of loss, a day of sorrow, a day, as we remember, the day of national mourning. Because what happened on that day was not a peaceful reunification of divided country. It is a violent conquest of a free South Vietnam by the communist North. And while the guns fell silent, the suffering had only just begun. Let us ask the hard questions, as Kha has already asked. If this was truly a victory for the Vietnamese people, why did millions risk their lives to flee? Why did parents put their children on makeshift rafts and push them out to the ocean with only hope and desperation? And why did so many die in the darkness of labor camps with no trial, no appeal, and no justice? More than 1 million, maybe 2 million Vietnamese fled by boat. I think Dr. Thản gave a conservative number, but at other places we've seen that more than 500,000, 600,000 may have died and may have and did not reach the other side of the shore of freedom. Just imagine that for a second. 600,000 people or 500,000 people. That's a lot of people. That's our people. And over 165,000 people believe they have died in communist prisons simply because they wore a different uniform. They believe in a different system that no longer existed. And or refused to be, quote, re-educated, unquote, into silence. So that's not a mark of a liberated people. That's the mark of oppression. And history will remember it as such. Before 1975, South Vietnam, thought far from perfect. It was a society striving toward freedom. We had functioning parliament, we had free press, we had competing political parties, and it had elections, it had public discourse, debate, and it had the seeds of a democracy. Then that fragile democracy was crushed. Its institutions were dismantled. The people were reclassified as enemies, người quân, người quyền. So the communists didn't unify. They erased. They didn't reconcile. They oppressed. And today's generation in Vietnam is living under the weight of that silence. The silence where the truth is censored, history is fabricated, and the voices of the dissent are being jailed. They say Vietnam was unified in April 30th, 1975, but unity is not unity. Unity without justice is just subjugation. And to this day, Vietnamese Communist Party refused to acknowledge the suffering of millions. It continues to persecute religious leaders, dissidents, journalists, and everyday citizens who dare to speak out. If the war truly ended, then why does the need to instill fear still exist? Why jail people for their Facebook posts? Why must the human rights lawyers be exiled? So, and why can't Vietnam have free and fair elections? So the answer is clear. To those questions are clear. The war may be over, but the struggle for freedom and justice continues. So today, as the Vietnamese regimes raise their red flag and stage these military parades with China, we raise a different flag, our yellow flag with 3 red stripes. And this is not just a relic of a former government. It's a living symbol of a dream that's still alive. A free and democratic Vietnam where the people, not the party, hold the power. We remember those who perished in concentration camps. We remember those who never reached the shore. We remember the families torn apart, the lives uprooted, the voices silenced. But more importantly, we remember because we believe that justice is not dead. We believe that freedom is never extinguished, and that our memory, our truth, our courage are stronger than any regime. At the request of the organizing committee of my wife, Linh Nguyễn, will complete with the invitation.
Quốc hận is not just about mourning the past. It is about honoring the truth. It's about refusing to forget. It's about standing up for our families, for our history, and for future generations. Let this time be more than remembrance. Let's turn patriotism into activism. Let it be called to action. Because the fight for freedom didn't end in 1975. It lives on. In every one of us who still believes in that Vietnam can and must be free. Dear friends, this year marks the 50 years since the dark day, April 30th, 1975, when the hope of free Vietnam was shattered. It has been half a century, but the memories remain vivid and the mission unfinished. We invite you to join us in the 50th Black April Memorial Commemoration in Washington, D.C., where together we will honor the fallen, give voice to the silence, and renew our commitment to Vietnam, where freedom, democracy, and human dignity prevail. The time is 10 o'clock, 10 in the morning, April the 30th, 2025, in Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Let us come together to mourn what was lost and proclaim what lives on. The enduring dream of a free Vietnam. Your presence is not only about remembrance, it is resilience, it is solidarity, it is hope. Stand with us. Together, we will turn mourning into mission, patriotism into action. Thank you.
Dr. Tang. Next, we have Dr. Tom Hung. He is the chairman and board of directors of the Vietnam Human Rights Day, May 11th. President of the Board of Executive of Vietnamese American Community in Pennsylvania. He was a former president of the Board of Executives for the Federation of Vietnamese American Communities in the USA, and founder and advisor of the Republic of Vietnam Next Generation. Dr. Tom Hung.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to share a truth that has been distorted and hidden for nearly half a century. It is the fundamental freedoms that Vietnamese people once enjoyed under the Republic of Vietnam. Freedoms that have since been stripped away under the communist regime. The first part I would like to show you what they have been before 1935. All the rights, human rights that once existed. The legacy of the Republic of Vietnam. Before 1935, the South Vietnamese people lived in a system that upheld fundamental civil and political freedoms that were abstract ideas but were actively practiced. There are 6 rights you have to see. First one, freedom of the press. Hundreds of independent newspapers and magazines were published, including those critical of the government. Journalists operated freely without fear of reprisal. Number 2, competitive elections. Multiple political parties compete in regular elections. Citizens have real choice and could replace their leaders. Number 3, freedom of religion. Dr. Tang and Dr. Chen mentioned about it before. Religious groups, including Buddhists, Catholics, Cao Dai, and Hoa Hao, were free to practice their faith and operate without state interference. Number 4, right to peaceful protest. Demonstrate, labor strike, and political rallies were common and largely protected, even those critical of the state. 5, freedom of association and political opposition. Citizens could form political parties, social organizations, and student unions. Opposition voices participate openly in public discourse. Independent judiciary. Judges were not subject to political control. Independent. Judges were not subject to political controls. Courts could rule against government actions and protect citizenship. This freedom made South Vietnam as a beacon of pluralism and democracy in Southeast Asia at the time. Now, after 1935, what has been lost? Life under communist rule today. Since the fall of Saigon in 1935, and imposition of the communist regime, these rights have been systematically dismantled. The same thing. No independent press. All media are state-controlled. Independent journalists and bloggers are jailed under vague laws like Article 117 for anti-state propaganda. 2. No free or competitive elections. Only Communist parties approved candidates may run. There is no real political competition. Number 3. No genuine religious freedom. Before we have practice freely, but now religious organizations must register with the state independent sector, like the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam. Dr. Chen talked about this before. Or independent Hoa are banned and persecuted. Number 4, criminalization of dissent. Peaceful critics are labeled enemies of the state. Activists, lawyers, and social media use our jailed for unpleasant opinions. 5, ban on independent unions and parties. Labor rights are tightly controlled. There are no independent trade unions, and political pluralism and outlawed. Number 6, suppression of digital speech. Facebook posts, blog entries, or YouTube videos critical of the regime have led to arrest, trials, and long prison sentences. Now the next part, the second part. There's retired teachers, math teacher. Whenever I say something, statement has to have something evident. Right now, I was iPhone. I have to give you a counter example. Whatever, okay, propaganda or whatever the Communist Party trying to say, I have to give you a counter example. Next, please. Okay, next one, please. The first thing, okay, the Vietnamese people say that the government right now up to 25. People today, okay, Vietnam is socialist rule of law state. We live in America, we know that. We live in law state. But in reality, a genuine rule of law does not imprison journalists or silence free speech. In the true legal state, law is just to protect rights, not to suppress them. In Vietnam, the legal system is used as a political weapon. And the Constitution may mention rights, but not in practice. Journalists like Phạm Dong Trang, an independent writer and activist, has been sentenced to 9 years in prison for only what? Propaganda against, because they got under propaganda against the state, simply for advocating peaceful reform. I remember that year 2020, and the years we have a meeting with the State Department. Dr. Tang remember that one, and the Secretary Busby that mentioned about that. On that day, the 6th of October 2020, we have dialogue between U.S. and Vietnam. And that day, hour after it ended, and she was arrested. And after that, 1921 and 37, 14, 21, she was sentenced for 9 years up to 2000. Okay, right now 29. Right now she's in jail. Only simply part. Okay, simply saying try to reform the government. Peaceful bloggers, broadcasters, and even Facebook users are arrested for expression dissent. The court lacks independence, and the lawyer, Ms. Lin, you should do their job in this channel there. Just follow directive from the Communist Party, not impartial justice. In America, we do that? No. It's only in Vietnam. We have law, what they call the jungle law. Number 2, please. No one is in prison for political views. The reality is what? Vague law criminalize peaceful activism and expression. And Vietnam use loosely defined laws such as Article 117, making, storing, or distributing information against the state. Article 331, abusing democratic freedom to infringe on state interests. This article frequently used in prison. Next one, please. Now, let's talk about environmental activists like Hoàng Thị Minh Hồng. And she only campaigned for climate change. If in America we say, okay, Mr. President, we have changed the climate. We don't talk about, are we going to be in jail? No, I don't think so. But in Vietnam, she was chief for campaign, chief for 3 years for under what we call tax invasion. I remember last year, the Undersecretary, and in the May event, she talked about what? Those taxes the Vietnamese people try to say. Tax invasion, not the real ground against them, but it's called tax invasion. Only what? For saying, they understand for pollution in Vietnam. This is the reality in Vietnam. And you got what? 3 years and a half in there. I don't say it's not evidence to show you that. And Buddhist monks, pastors, and even farmers protest land season. They are not violent yet treated as criminal. Next one, please. And freedom is a justice for Vietnam unique context. In reality, human rights are universal and not negotiable. This argument is often used by authoritarian regimes to justify, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Vietnam has signed, affirms freedom of speech, religious, assembly, and political participation are universal, not conditional on country context. Cultural and history uniqueness cannot justify season or banning opposition parties. I remember last year, I remember this year, 2025, I remember everyone remember the lawyer Đặng Đình Mạnh. That's why. And next week. And because his job is like to protect those prisoner of conscience. And now she is in America. The reason because and not only him, but those with lawyer Nguyễn Văn Miến, who was against Vietnam 2 years due to Vietnam politics. If the lawyer human rights, if you're here, who protect them in Vietnam? Because what? Even though they're lawyer, they're still afraid of being in jail. And I don't know whether they are not, but we make sure that in this room, I remember a couple months ago, he's here, and in Lễ Tưởng we invite him to talk about that. If Vietnam can trade globally, it also abide the global human rights norms. Next one, please. Lastly, people today live happier, more prosperous live. But in reality, material progress cannot replace basic freedom. It's true Vietnam has seen economic growth, but prosperity without freedom brings fear, not happiness. People can buy smartphone, iPhone 16, 17, but are arrested for what they post online, please. For example, here's the one, Bùi Tuấn Long, a noodle vendor in Vietnam who apparently one of the country's most powerful minister, talked about, Do Long, has been jailed for 5.5 years for anti-state propaganda. Anyone know that case? Only what? Try to mimic whatever the chief doing this, but not mention any name. And he's put about how many years? And this one 5.5 years. Only about saying, not mention any name, but only do the action like that. The chief, only. But 5.5 years. Imagine that you say that you criticize the government in Vietnam. How many years you can do? Like Phạm Đông Trang, 9 years. And Trần Quang Vy Thức, 15 years. And we have a lot. We have the combined a lot of about right now. On fire, you have more than 2 people doing that. Happiness must include the right to speak, worship, assemble, and challenge injustice and without fear. Now is my proud example. Thank you very much.
So we always save the best for last. As I promised, Representative from VOC, Ms. Karina Littman, please welcome for her remark today. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Karina Lipsman, and I am the Government Relations Director here at the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. We are so honored and delighted to have you all here today. It's wonderful to see the next generation participate in such an important mission. It's wonderful to see you, so many brave men and women, fighting for a cause, both in your home country and here stateside. And I really do hope this is just an opportunity for all of us to come together, regardless of where you're from, regardless of where you fought. My family and I came from Soviet Ukraine, and what's going on right now with Ukraine is extremely sad, but we understand. We understand what the Vietnamese people have gone through, and we stand with you today. So we're at a crossroads of time where the wisdom of the past must be carried forward to illuminate the path ahead of our children. History has taught us many lessons, some triumphant, some tragic, but perhaps none so vital, so dire in consequence as the lesson under the shadow of communism. Communism, in theory, promised equality. In practice, it delivered oppression. It dismantled economies, erased cultural heritage, and extinguished millions of lives. The 20th century bears the scars of regimes that preached utopia, but practiced tyranny. Stalin's Soviet Union, Mao's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia. Wherever communism was implemented in its purest form, it brought starvation, surveillance, censorship, and soul-crushing fear. It is not just a failed economic system. It is a threat to the very core of human freedom and dignity. Yet in our modern world, many young people look upon communism with curiosity or even admiration. Why? Because the horrors are distant, the history is buried, and the propaganda is seductive. It speaks to their noble desires for justice, fairness, and care for the vulnerable. These ideals are worthy, but communism is not the path to achieve them. This is where we, the older generation, come in. We have lived through more, we have seen more, and we must say more. So how do we help that younger generation understand? And part of it is exactly what you're doing here today, is telling the stories. If you fled communism, speak your flight. If your family suffered, share their suffering. If you lived through its collapse, tell them what it felt like to breathe fresh, free air again. It is not a time of silence. It is a time for testimony. Personal narratives resonate more than textbooks ever could. For those who didn't experience it firsthand, read history with your children and your grandchildren. Read Solzhenitsyn or Orwell's 1984. Discuss them. Reflect upon them. The past must not be forgotten, and memory must not be outsourced to the screen. Schools and communities must also play their part. Encourage civic education grounded in facts, not ideology. Organize intergenerational forums where elders can speak directly to the youth. Invite survivors of totalitarian regimes to share their stories in the classroom, churches, and community centers. And it not cost a cent. A grandparent can talk to a grandchild over tea. A working class father can share his concerns with his teenager at the dinner table. A retired teacher can volunteer a few hours a week at the local school. A small business owner can host a community discussion. Everyone has a role. For those with more resources, support organizations that promote freedom, history education, and civic responsibility. Fund scholarship, libraries, or even local museums that are dedicated to preserving the truth of the past. And perhaps most importantly, listen. Listen to the youth. Understand why they are drawn to these ideas. Then engage with them, and not in anger, but with patience and with reason. Show them that freedom is not the enemy of compassion. It is the foundation of it. Let us be the bridge between memory and hope. Let us pass down not just warnings, but wisdom. Because if we do not teach them, someone else will. And that someone may not always have their best interest at heart. So as we continue to fight this deadly ideology, and it is imperative that we educate the next generation of freedom fighters, let us all come together and share our stories and ensure that we're including the next generation in everything that we're doing. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we'll have Joseph Leck. Born and raised in Northern Virginia as a first-generation Asian American, Joseph has played an active voice in the local Asian community. He was crowned Mr. VietFest in 2023 and has deeply been involved with the Vietnamese community and getting involved with the next generation.
Thank you, Glenn. When I was given this opportunity to speak about my thoughts on the Vietnam War, I was a bit overwhelmed. To speak about something that was so catastrophic to the Vietnamese people, I didn't know where to start, especially because I didn't experience it personally. War, to me, is a terrible thing. Why do people have to kill each other to solve an issue? It never made sense, and neither does this war. I try to understand by listening to those who experienced the war, and it saddens me to hear about what they had to have gone through. My grandpa being in prison for 13 years in a small box, starving himself, witnessing others be killed, seeing his own people turn against each other. My mother having to travel endless miles on my great-grandfather's back through waters that rose up to his chest just to provide some meals for my grandfather. Quote-unquote, boat people, fleeing from Vietnam, having to travel through unimaginable conditions. My grandmother and her family were part of those people. I've heard so many gut-wrenching stories full of pain that still affects the Vietnamese people to this day. In the end, I still wonder why this war had to have happened. Power? Ideology? Greed? What I noticed in my family is that we tend to not trust easily, for obvious reasons. But it caused us to not be able to trust some of the littlest things. Being taught that the world is a dangerous place, always keeping our heads on a swivel, not to trust anyone so easily, the fear of being stabbed in the back is strong in the Vietnamese community. At the same time, I feel as if this made the Vietnamese community stronger together. Many Vietnamese people finding new homes in different parts of the world. Over 750,000 went to the U.S. from 1975 to 2002. You can feel how unified we are here. There's this universal sense of family when Vietnamese people see each other, passively knowing what they had to have gone through to get here. Like when my mother calls when my mother calls other Vietnamese people Jay or An, having genuine appreciation for each other's presence. The world needs more peace. My heart goes out to all those who were and are still affected by this war. I often hear from people after attending these events, you have to do something for the next generation. We're still fighting for peace. After much pondering on what can really be done to bring peace to our people, I'm still not 100% sure. It's a very complicated situation, but I believe that unity is the main focus. Continue to love one another with grace. Be there for your people and community. Find ways to give back. Simply taking the time to listen to your family and their experiences goes a long way. It will mean a lot to them, and trust me, it will help you too. You begin to understand more and become more grateful. I hope that the past generation can rest easy knowing that the spirit is still high and that the mission for peace is never ending until attained. May God bless us all. Thank you.
Representing our generation right now. Next will be Alex Rod, a Centralville High School student. He's a Korean American who is involved with the Make Us Visible Virginia chapter, who is pushing for API history within the Virginia state government. Alex.
Hello, good morning. So today I want to take a moment to speak, not just as a student of America and Korea, but as a product of the fostered relationship between two democracies. April 30th, 1975 marks the fall of Saigon, and it is not just a day in a textbook, but it was a day of loss, and it marked the end of South Vietnam. The end of a dream for many people, the loss of a home for many more. It was a solemn day across the world, because that day we didn't just lose a war, we lost allies, pride, and a country of democracy. With the estimated total death count being around 1.5 million in South Vietnam, of those 1.5 million consists my great-grandfather, who was shot and killed in the Vietnam War, leaving my grandmother and her siblings orphaned in South Korea. Now, it is hard to imagine the fear and pain this war has caused in the name of democracy, and with the level of grief that I can only imagine. The United States stood in that fight, but not alone. With allies such as the Republic of Korea, Korean soldiers fought and bled alongside the Americans and South Vietnamese, not because they had to, but because they believed in the same principles of liberty, democracy, and the protection of human rights everywhere. That alliance mattered, and that friendship, forged in blood, showing us that freedom is something that we should never take for granted. Democracy is not easy, it is fragile, it demands effort, and sometimes even sacrifice. And while the fall of Saigon reminds us of what we have lost, it also reminds us of why we keep fighting. We may have lost that battle, but we haven't lost the lessons that it taught us. That freedom is always worth defending, and that our allies, like South Korea, stand with us in that mission. So today, let's remember not just what was lost, but what lives on, the spirit of those who believed, and the courage of those who stood up, and the hope that someday, everywhere, people will live free.
Next, we'll welcome Ji Nguyen Din Esquire, President of the Vietnamese American Celebrating Freedom, and I'd like to take my.
Thank you. Kính thưa quý vị, cho Uyên xin nói vài phút. Giáo sư Kim Oanh, các bác, các cô chú, bố mẹ. My speech is not for you. I've listened to you talk about Vietnam War for 50 years. This is not about you. This is about our young people. Thank you for making us visible, for coming and showing up. Thank you for everybody who's not a boomer or a Gen Xer in this room, because you know what? You have to carry on this message. This is our history, not just Vietnamese history, American history, world history. These people are gone. Most of this first couple rows, they may not be here in the next 50 years. I mean, I'm just going to say, probably not. I may not be around in 50 years, but you will. It's going to be your voices. It's going to be your stories. It's going to be your sharing of this history, this heritage, and this culture together. Do not let other people, the communist regime, marketing people, advertisers, don't let them tell you what to think, what to believe. You have all these First Amendment rights to think, to read, to speak, to protest, to worship as you please, to assemble peacefully. Use those First Amendment constitutional rights to think for yourselves. Ask, is this the truth? If it's not the truth, go find the truth. Don't be foolish and don't be a sucker. That's what my generation said. So I thank you all for sharing in this history, our combined history, American history, world history, the tragedy of the fall of Saigon. And I deeply thank all these young people who gave up their Saturday mornings to come here, because I've been listening to these older generations talk for a million years, and it's time to pass that torch. It's time for new techniques, new tactics, new thinking, new leadership. That is you all. Alex, that was brilliant. Joseph, my hat's off to you. We need to continue this thread. You don't have to tell the same stories because that's not your story. Tell your family's story. Talk to your elders, talk to your families. Let's bring this together because you know what? Your story going forward is more important than anything because it's yours. So thank you, and I'm going to give back the balance of my time.
Thank you.
Because we are running behind schedule, we are going to go ahead to the next portion of our program. It's the candlelight vigil, and I will come back in one recap to guide us through the vigil.
Tôi xin phép được mời quý vị trong ban tổ chức chuẩn bị cho cái phần thắp nến ở trên này. Mời Destiny sẽ mở đầu chiếc qua phần này.
Only those who dare to sacrifice the most sacred gift of all, their own lives, in the name of freedom, can truly comprehend its worth. Those who give their lives for the people, for the nation, live on forever. They did not seek for glory. They did not ask for anything in return. They simply answered the call of their homeland with courage, with love, with their very lives. And due to the limited time today of ceremony, we ask for your understanding as we solemnly recite the names of the generals and officers who chose to make the ultimate sacrifice rather than surrender. Lieutenant General Nguyễn Khoa Nam, Brigadier General Lê Văn Hưng, Brigadier General Trần Văn Hai, Brigadier General Lê Nguyên Vĩ, Colonel Hồ Ngọc Cẩn, Police Lieutenant Colonel Nguyễn Văn Long, we also extend our heartfelt reverence to all the fallen heroes of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Force who give their lives in defense of noble ideal of freedom. They live on in every heartbeat of our motherland, in every breath of freedom that we take. The sacrifice is eternal. Their spirit is forever with us today. We do not mourn their death. We honor their life. We carry their dreams, their hopes, their unfinished words, and we vow to live the way that make their sacrifice worldwide.
Today, we solemnly commemorate more than 500,000 Vietnamese born people, Vietnamese refugees, who perished on their journey across the sea, through the forest, or in the cramped vehicle like registered trucks, as they sought to escape from the oppression, seeking for the life of freedom. They left not because of the consequence of the war, but because of their yearning for the life to live with dignity and righteousness. They chose to risk their life in the face of danger in a chance for freedom. We also honor the countless lives lost under communist regime, from brave souls who fought for freedom to innocent victims crushed under the repressive policies. Their suffering and heroism must never be forgotten. They remind us the true cause of freedom and the enduring human spirit in the face of tyranny. Although history may never record the name of every individual who perished, nor count all the souls lost to the vast ocean, deep forests, or the silence of prison walls, the history of our people will forever enshrine their stories as the irrefutable evidence of the crimes committed by the Vietnamese Communist Party. Let us pray and pay tribute to honor our fallen heroes and the victims of the communism of Vietnam.
May Win will be playing the violin as we commemorate. May Win Tan La Sing. Honorary Grand Tamasita for playing her violin Gote G minor. She honors her past and her lineage of those that made the sacrifice to serve her freedom.
Buổi lễ đến đây đã kết thúc. Chúng tôi xin cảm ơn quý vị ân nhân sau đây đã không ngừng nghỉ ủng hộ cho group cũng như ban tổ chức để hoàn thành công tác ngày hôm nay. Đó là ông bà Đinh Hùng Cường và bà Lê Ngọc Trâm. Vietnamese American Celebrity Freedom. Ông bà Vũ Thế Hiền, Thu Phong Vũ, ông Hà Văn Sang, bà Lê Đình Mỹ Vân, ông bà Lưu Thanh Sơn từ Texas, ông bà Hiệu Diệu từ Texas. Xin cảm ơn quý vị.
This concludes the formal part of our ceremony. We invite you to stay for refreshments, enjoy the exhibits, and participate in our current events activities. After this ceremony, there will be a children's book reading activity in the conference room, led by Han Bui. Thank you for being part of today's commemoration and honoring the past and those in the future with us.
I would like to say thank you in Vietnamese first. Chúng con xin chân thành cảm ơn sự hiện diện của quý trưởng thượng và các hội đoàn, các quý anh chị đã luôn hỗ trợ cho chúng con. Và bây giờ chúng con xin phép được mời 7 người lên đây để rước 7 cái hình anh linh của những người tử sĩ đưa trở về bên phòng triển lãm. Phòng triển lãm sẽ kéo dài cho tới tháng 6. Thành ra chúng con cũng xin ở đây tiện nói là chúng con làm những cái hình này có cái bio bằng tiếng Anh và tiếng Việt là muốn mục đích là để lại ở phòng triển lãm chứ không phải theo một cái bài vị như phong tục của người Á Đông của chúng ta. Cho nên xin quý bậc trưởng thượng hiểu và bỏ qua. Bây giờ I would like to ask for 7 volunteers respectfully come up here and one by one please bring all of those back to the exhibit. Thank you. And bên cạnh đó là bên phòng đó thì sẽ có 2 cái phần lửa, thắp lửa. Thì chúng con cũng xin mời các bác cựu quân nhân, các bậc trưởng thượng cùng chúng con qua bên đó để thắp lên cái ngọn lửa bên kia. Yeah. Xin mời bác Quốc Cường với lại mấy bậc trưởng thượng chúng ta qua phòng bên này để có cái xin mời tất cả quý vị quan khách chúng ta cùng đi qua bên phòng này.
Còn thêm cuối họp cuối cùng nữa. Anh nói.
Chậm.